Hi, this is Roy Samuelson with the ADNA Presents. In light of the wonderful successes that we've been able to manifest for SAG Awards, I wanted to repost this thoughtful interview with John Brockett, executive producer at the Screen Actors Guild Awards. Go to the link in the description for an update on how SAG-AFTRA has been at the forefront of recent DEI initiatives. And now, here's John. John Brockett. He is executive producer of the Screen Actors Guild Awards. We're really honored to have John joining us. Thank you for coming, John.
Thank you so much for having me, Roy.
What do you love about audio description?
I think I want to talk about it as it maybe pertains to the show, which I think is what, we've been working towards here for the SAG Awards. And our show is very visual, from the fashion to the set design. And I love that audio description allows audiences who are blind and have low vision to enjoy the show more fully in those ways and be able to be part of the full experience and the conversation around things that aren't audible.
Very exciting, and it's so great to hear that fashion, the set design being a part of that access that you provide.
Well, and listen, those are some of my favorite things about the show on the creative side, and that we can give that experience to people who are blind and low vision makes me happy as somebody who is deeply involved in stuff like that. So I really appreciate that piece of it for that particular audience. And I think the second thing that I would say is just accessibility with a capital A, just ensuring accessibility for our SAG-AFTRA membership and the SAG Awards audiences. And that was really key for us this year. And we're really excited about two things that we were able to implement this year, which is the audio description requirement for all the for-your consideration digital screeners that went out or are currently available to the members to vote on. That's now a required option. And then beyond that, and a thank you to Tide for this, who is a sponsor, the live telecast will now feature audio description for the first time. And we're really, really excited and really happy about that.
And those 2 points that you brought up, the requirement for screeners as well as the live AD for the show, those were specifically included in a press release in January. It sounds like the accessibility is more than just, hey, it has it and we require it, but also we want to let you know that it has it and that we require it. Why was that important?
Well, two reasons. One, we have a blind and low vision community among our membership. And we needed them to be able to know and understand this in order to access it, because otherwise, what's the point? We have to be able to communicate this. And the other piece is we wanted to, frankly, make a statement about it. We're behind this community. We're not perfect about it. We are aiming to be better. And I think it's important that people know that about not only the show, but the union as well.
Very cool. Were blind and low vision performers involved in the decision-making process or contributed somehow?
They were, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually really wanted to call out the process, because it was really enlightening to me as a sighted person. Our membership and voting body is very large. And within that membership, there are committees, and we worked really closely with the AD task force, and which is a committee at the union. Steve was very helpful in the process, along with the rest of the committee members. And we just really appreciated their engagement on this, not only getting their perspectives as someone who is cited for me, but also all the details needed to kind of make this a huge success, which we are hoping it will be.
Who's Steve?
Steve Gladstone is the vice chair of the Performers with Disabilities Committee.
Very cool. When you think about, I'm going to use the word synergy, and that seems too fancy, but you mentioned Tide's involvement in the press release. There's something special about that. I know it's advertising for Tide, but there seems like there's something to that as well.
Yeah, I agree. When they became involved, or the idea was brought to us, it was something that was, I think, important because a large brand like Tide or Procter & Gamble, their parent company, being behind something like this in a real substantive way was important to us. And it was important to us not just because they gave us money for it, but because of their own initiatives. So Tide and P&G have very strong accessibility initiatives within their company. And so to be aligned with a company like that, and for them to be aligned with us, who are trying to make our show more accessible and our FYC voting materials more accessible, that just made a lot of sense to us. And we're really thrilled that they're involved.
Well, if we could go in a little bit more details with what you can share behind the scenes on the maybe some challenges. It sounds like that SAG Awards providing audio description, it's relatively new to SAG Awards simply because this is the first year that it's happening and it's really exciting. Can you name some challenge that you and your team were really proud of how you overcame, some hurdles that you just obliterated out of the way?
I mean, quite honestly, I think the biggest obstacle was implementing the AD requirement for the FYC content. There's a lot of it. And not only is a lot of it, but there's a lot of various different streaming platforms. So there could be 40, 50, 60 titles. And then that could be strung over a dozen different platforms. And so we wanted to make sure from the outset that we worked really closely with the studios and the networks to make sure that on the development side of all of the digital titles that were made available, that this would be ready come January when our final voting period opened. And we started talking about this with them in May, June. So the key was really early, the messaging early and often, and how to kind of make sure that it was digested in a way where they understood not only was this a requirement that they would have to fulfill in January, but that they would have to understand that this development starts months in advance for these platforms because they're all digital. And so it's not just like a flip of a switch. They obviously have to build in this functionality. And so, and I really have to actually give a big hand to our coordinating producer, Jen Coyne-Hurley, and her team, who worked directly with the studios and networks and made this happen. And she was integral to the process, and her team was, and making sure. And part of her job is, and the team's job is vetting all of this. So they had to not only make sure that the studios and networks were following our rules and our guidelines, but also when it came down to it, vetting each and every platform for this functionality, which is a lot of work.
Wow. Yeah.
And we're thrilled to be able to do it, because if it brings this accessibility to the membership, then it makes it all worth it.
Very cool. Did you find that any of the studios needed some hand holding? I'm imagining that most of them are familiar, possibly some of the bigger ones, with audio description, either on the streaming services or otherwise. Was it, and again, I don't want to call anybody out. That's not my goal here. My question is, did you find that there had to be some, hey, this is what audio description is? Or was it like, oh, we have it, but we don't know how to do it. Let's figure that out. Did you feel like you had to start at square one, or were you a few rungs up the ladder on that?
Definitely did not feel like we had to start at square one. It really felt like we had some buy-in early on from everybody. I think there was challenges that they needed to face in order to put together the time and resources needed for the functionality to eventually exist. I think those were challenges, but the initial buy-in was immediate. People not only understood, but I think in large degree, a lot of studio networks, particularly streaming platforms, if they have, all newer content is audio described that they're producing. And then a lot of them that have library content are going back and creating audio descriptions for their older content. So HBO Max is going back and creating audio description files for shows like Sex and the City, things that live in their libraries. So they were very familiar with the process and the necessity and the need for accessibility. We just needed to work with them in terms of our own criteria for voting and viewing the for your consideration titles.
One of the things that I'm particularly excited about with not only the press release, not only the accessibility on the show, but also this requirement is that there's another opportunity within Screen Actors Guild as far as being a part of this conversation that performers with disabilities, as well as other performers, do this work in audio description. And it seems like there's a possibility there for awareness building as far as the contribution on that. Thinking particularly about how the Television Academy does include audio description credits for audio description narrators to qualify to be able to vote for their awards, and that there seems to be something there because Screen Actors Guild is representing performers, that there's an aspect there. I'm probably not leading to any question, but I just am curious if you had any thoughts on how this will impact performers with disabilities and the awareness of them performing this work as an audio description narrator.
That's the sort of interesting kind of thing about this, is that not only are we providing this for our members, but we have members who are in fact audio describers. And so it's an interesting kind of confluence there where we also represent these members. So I think that there's a natural combination there of investment, right? So you've got not only producers who want to make things accessible, but then you've got this sort of membership-led group who are purposeful in what they're trying to accomplish with audio description. And then on top of that, you've got the additional investment of some of these members working as audio describers. And so it's a really nice community of people to be serving in that way.
Where would you like to see audio description headed, just based on your experience in the last year? Where would you love to see things going?
I mean, I think that everyone would agree that accessibility for every individual is key, whether it's in the world of audio descriptions or closed captioning or whatever. Then I think just more of it everywhere, and in particular with audio description, that it becomes the standard practice for all visual art forms. There is a lot that's missed without that. And I think we're really proud that we can offer audio description in this year's show and for the digital screeners. And we just continue to hope to keep enhancing this experience for our membership and audiences that are visually impaired.
In the conversations that we've had with the Performers with Disability group, your responses and your contributions were filled with a sense of curiosity and openness and understanding that felt so, it was real. It came across, and one of the things that I was so excited to have you on this podcast was because of that first impression, that you understood the challenges and you understood the hurdles in a very realistic and logistical way, but you also understood the need and the opportunity. And to be able to see how SAG Awards could get both of these hurdles accomplished, the two hurdles that we've already talked about, whether it's the live AD for the actual show, as well as the requirement for the nominees, that there was something that was so clear, and I didn't get the sense that you saw this as an obligation as much as an opportunity. In our conversations, it came across very clearly like, yeah, this is something that I'm, if it's not excited about, it's like, here's an opportunity that we can really jump on. Could you talk a little bit about that as far as the opportunity that you see in SAG Awards? And again, I don't want to put any words in your mouth. I just wanted to share that was my experience with you.
No, that's so nice. I'm really glad we went in this direction because you said such nice things about me.
Okay, here we go.
No, that was very nice. And I'm glad that that is what you felt, because that is what I felt during the process. I think that, listen, I'll be really candid. Before meeting with the task force, I saw some of the challenges with this as insurmountable. I wasn't aware fully of all of the things needed to make this work, for better or for worse. Because a lot of what I learned going into the process, and Jen and I both learned this, was that, hey, this is actually not that hard. And so the willingness and the openness of the task force and the PWD committee to share their experiences with us not only helped underscore the need for it, but also helped us understand, even in very small ways, what we can do to make things better. I think ultimately, the thing that I learned was, and I learned this from you and the people that you connected us with, and I learned this from Steve and the way that he was able to speak about things from his perspective and from other members on the committee, that ultimately these things are all doable and in a way that is way more easier than we anticipated. And I'm not saying that to make it sound like, oh, at the end of the day, it just really wasn't that hard. And like, there were challenges that we had to face. I'm not saying that, but I really, really am glad I went through this process, because it helped me not only understand, but it opened me up to the potential for what can be done when in your head, you're just assuming this is a mountain we cannot climb. So this has helped change my perspective, not just about AD, but a lot of other things. Like, hey, just stop and listen and open yourself up to what can be done. And look what we got done. Look what we accomplished. We got it all done in one season, which is so great. You know, we got both the FYC for digital screeners, and we got the live telecast audio described, and that was great. And we're so proud of it. We're so happy about it.
Very cool. Could you give just a reminder to our audience about when, how, and anything else that you want to share? Maybe a website, social media, that sort of thing?
Sure. You can watch the SAG Awards live simulcast on TNT and TBS Sunday, February 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then the SAG Awards will also be available the following day on HBO Max, which we're excited about. And if you want to follow us on social, on Instagram at SAG Awards, on Twitter at SAG Awards, on TikTok, which is new for us this year, at SAG Awards, and Facebook is the SAG Awards official page. And, you know, you can also check out our website at sagawards.org for all the latest.
Great. Anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
This has been a joy. It's been a pleasure, Roy. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming, John.